Notice, please, Ada.
Adequate public notice has been given pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been posted at the board's office and website and has been emailed to the Department of State and to newspapers of broad circulation within the state.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Holden,
Here.
Commissioner Solomon,
Here.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Here.
Commissioner Gordon,
Here.
President Fiordaliso.
Here. And our next meeting will be when, Ada?
Our next regular board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2020 at 11 a.m. via teleconference. Details to follow.
Thank you. Again, I want to welcome everyone who has joined us this morning for our regular board meeting. And those of you who might have joined us for item 8B. 8B has been deferred and will be addressed at a later board meeting. The board will be going into executive session, and the following items will be discussed in executive session. Item 8A, clean energy request for qualifications of offshore wind transmission consulting services for the PJM state agreement approach process. And I might add that is we are the first state to take advantage of this particular type of agreement. Item 8C, the matter of a contract for analyzing the rate impact of the Energy Master Plan. And 8E, in the matter of modernizing New Jersey's interconnection rules, processes, and metrics. The board will be taking action on these items during regular session. Executive session, I would estimate, would probably run anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes. Will the Attorney General's office please explain the justification for going into executive session?
Yes, good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners.
Good morning.
For the three items President Fiordaliso just mentioned, the board will be going into executive session today pursuant to the contract and attorney-client privilege exceptions to the Open Public Meetings Act. These exceptions are found in New Jersey Statute 10:4-12B.
Thank you very much. Before we go into executive session, remember that we have to sign out of Zoom and then sign into Microsoft Teams. And then when we come back, the regular session, we sign out of Microsoft Teams back onto Zoom. Did I get that right, Ada?
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we are going into executive session. See you all soon. All right, again, welcome everyone who is joining us this morning. We are back from executive session and we will go on to our regular open session at this point. I do have some opening comments I'd like to make. First one being that in honor of Black History Month, I wanted to share a piece of Black history that relates to something that we all rely on every single day: light bulbs. All of you listening probably know that the light bulb was invented by Thomas Edison. But what many of you may not know is that the innovation used to create longer lasting light bulbs with a carbon filament came from the African American inventor Lewis Latimer. The addition to the carbon filament increased the lifespan and the practicality of light bulbs, which had previously died after just a few days. So you were constantly changing light bulbs at the time. You might say that Lewis Latimer created an energy efficiency light bulb for his time. Latimer is just one of many African Americans who have contributed significantly to our history in the 400 years that they have been in America. And this month especially, we recognize them and their contributions. And that's what makes America such a wonderful place: the diversity of our society and the contributions that all groups have made to our society. With our celebration of Black history this month, it is also a notable moment to pause and observe our practices, to consider how we can create a more equitable future going forward. One such way is in our business practices. Just yesterday, I had the privilege to participate in the Supplier Diversity Development Council forum, of which, as you know, or may not know, the board is a founding member and a continuing supporter. The SDDC is dedicated to forging effective working relationships amongst minority, women, veteran, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses and New Jersey's public utilities, and the Board of Public Utilities on matters relating to methods of reporting, measuring, and assessing the development of these relationships. We have an obligation to make the playing field as level as we possibly can. I encourage all utilities and players in the state's energy economy to connect with the SDDC to discover ways that they can better support minority, women, veteran, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses today. I also want to remind folks that we're still in a moratorium period as far as shutoffs are concerned. However, it's important for each and every one of our ratepayers, if they are in arrearages, to contact their utility company. See if a payment plan is possible. Your utility company is willing and able to work with you. I caution you not to wait until the last minute when moratoriums are no longer in existence and pay this outstanding huge bill to the utility companies. Reach out, set up a payment plan. The utility wants to hear from you and they want to be cooperative and help you along. So please do that. I want to thank advocates who have participated in our various stakeholder meetings. Your input is vital in helping us to make decisions, knowing what you're saying and doing. Yesterday, also, I had the privilege of being at an event in Newark with the governor at the Newark Public Works to be part of announcements that the governor made. An office has been created in the governor's office to help coordinate all of the clean energy initiatives that are going on with every single department within state government. This is something that we have been promoting for the past few years, that there has to be a coordination center in order to ensure the fact that all state departments are going on the same path in the same direction to achieve our goal of 100% clean energy by 2050. This office and the governor's office will certainly, hopefully, provide that direction. It was also announced that a new council was going to be set up to assist in that process. And that new council is going to have 3 co-chairs. The honorary chair will be the First Lady, and the 3 co-chairs will be the Commissioner of Labor, the Commissioner of EDA, I'm sorry, my bad, the Commissioner of DEP, and me. We will be working on economic advancements through a clean energy economy. So a number of exciting things yesterday that did occur. We also have some new employees. I know you joined me in welcoming Eric Weaver, Assistant Bureau Chief, Pipeline Safety, Division of Reliability and Security. Welcome, Eric. And Jamie Saunders, Deputy Director of Energy in the Division of Energy. And welcome, Jamie. We have some interns also. And interns are a great way for folks to not only learn about the BPU and state government and the rewards therein, but also to help us promote the various initiatives that we have. We have Christopher Contos from the State Energy Services, Hank Wong from State Energy Services, and Isabella Marshall in Clean Energy. Welcome to you, and we look forward to working with you. Do any other commissioners wish to make any opening remarks?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. I think the Black History Month, last Monday, February 8th, NRRI held a discussion of a book by Steve Mitnick, Public Utilities Fortnightly. He talked about the Louis Latimer, who is an engineer, the Black engineer, and a unique figure. And he was the catalyst behind Thomas Alva Edison's success. And it was a fascinating character. He talked about, he played a very critical role as an engineer, draftsman for Alexander Graham Bell, the phone, and Thomas Edison, and for Hiram Maxim, the inventor of carbon filament. That's what you mentioned earlier. And he also has a role in the machine gun and also self-resetting mousetrap. So it's a fascinating individual. It's a fascinating book. It's available on Public Utilities Fortnightly. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting facts. And that's what all of these groups that are celebrated throughout the year, it really helps us to realize the contributions made by every segment of our society, which makes America so great. Any other commissioners?
One more thing, Mr. President, I forgot.
Sure.
This is the month of when we celebrate Engineers Week. I just wanted to, as an engineer, to all the engineers at BPU and around the world, wish them a very successful Engineers Week.
And in previous years, we used to have a little gathering sponsored by you.
Right, and we want to do that in the Zoom, but it's not the same. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Anyone else? Ada, would you read the consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. On the following consent agenda items, 1A, 1B, 4A, 5A, and the minutes for the December 2nd, 2020 agenda meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
yes,
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you. There are no items for consideration under audits, so let's go right to energy. Stacy, you'll be presenting the first few here, I see.
Correct. Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. I can, anyway.
For Agenda Item 2A, on July 31st, Elizabethtown Gas filed a petition seeking approval to modify its rates relating to the review and true-up of its weather normalization charge, the New Jersey Clean Energy Program component of its SBC, and its on-system margin sharing credit. By order dated September 23rd, 2020, the Board approved a provisional stipulation executed by the parties for rates effective October 1st, 2020. As a result of that stipulation, a typical residential heating customer would experience an increase in their monthly bills of $2.33. The parties have now completed their review and executed a stipulation for final rates. As a result of the stipulation, there is no additional impact on customer bills. Staff recommends the board issue an order approving the stipulation and directing Elizabethtown to file revised tariffs by March 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Stacy? Roll call, Ada?
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
yes,
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. 2B, Stacy, JCP&L's remediation adjustment clause.
Yes. On October 1st, JCP&L filed a petition seeking review and approval of the actual costs and expenditures incurred related to the environmental remediation of its former manufactured gas plant sites for calendar year 2019. The recoverable remediation expenses for 2019 totaled approximately $4.339 million. When combined with the 2019 ending over-recovered deferred balance, the net remediation costs decreased to $2.1 million. The 2019 net expenses and the remaining amortization of prior RAC expenditures previously approved for recovery would result in a decrease to JCP&L's rider RAC revenues of approximately $2.13 million annually. The parties have executed a stipulation to resolve this matter. As a result of the stipulation, a typical residential customer will see a decrease in their monthly bills of 9 cents. Staff recommends the board issue an order adopting the stipulation and directing Jersey Central to file revised tariffs by March 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
yes,
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. 2C, Stacy, Rockland Electric's Reggie true-up filing.
Correct. On January 31st of 2020, Rockland Electric filed a petition seeking approval to recover program costs and revenue requirements related to several components of its Reggie surcharge for calendar year 2019. In the filing, Rockland proposed to increase the total Reggie surcharge. However, throughout the course of the proceeding, Rockland updated its actual expenses and revenues through October 2020. And as a result of the update and incorporating the board-approved TREC program rate component, the resulting revenue requirement was decreased. The parties have executed a stipulation resolving all issues related to the filing, which recommends approval of a decrease in the total Reggie surcharge rate. As a result of the stipulation, a typical residential customer will experience an average monthly decrease of 82 cents. Staff recommends that the board issue an order approving the stipulation and directing Rockland to file revised tariffs by March 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Stacy? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
yes,
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
yes,
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you. I'll be back later.
Oh, okay. So we shouldn't miss you too much then.
Don't miss me too much.
Okay. 2D, Joe DeLosa.
Good morning, Mr. President. Can you hear me okay?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. President and Commissioners.
Good morning.
In item 2D, on January 19th, 2021, staff, on behalf of the board, and along with a wide range of parties, requested rehearing of a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that is FERC, rejection of a PJM stakeholder proposal to address replacements for end of useful service life transmission facilities. The January 19th, 2021 rehearing request broadly asserts that the Commission's rejection was arbitrary and capricious, overstated the legal rights of the PJM transmission owners, and will lead to unjust and unreasonable rates. In addition to the board, the January 19th rehearing request was supported by a diverse group of parties, including the Public Power Association of New Jersey, LS Power, Old Dominion Electric Cooperative, American Municipal Power, the PJM Industrial Customer Coalition, and several consumer advocates. The filed rehearing request is consistent with the board's long-held policy positions in support of the benefits of competitive transmission investments. Staff therefore requests ratification of the request for rehearing filed by staff on behalf of the board on January 19th, 2021.
So moved.
second,
Questions, comments for Joe? Roll call?
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
yes,
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
yes,
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. 2E, Joe, related to offshore wind?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. In item 2E, on November 23rd, 2020, the U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, issued a request for information, or RFI, related to offshore wind transmission system integration. This RFI sought input from interested stakeholders on priorities to guide DOE's research agenda. On January 24th, 2021, staff, on behalf of the board, filed a response to the RFI, highlighting policy areas that would benefit from prioritization by DOE research funding. Among others, staff recommended that the DOE prioritize researching best practices in uniform technical standards for offshore wind transmission construction, technologies that may improve capacity accreditation and economics of offshore wind, and forecast improvements related to offshore wind generation. Staff recommends that the board ratify the RFI response filed by staff on behalf of the board on January 24th, 2021.
So moved.
second,
Questions, comments for Joe?
Thank you, Mr. President. Joe, given what happened in Texas and recently, and a lot of the transmission, of course, generation as well as the transmission assets, there were a lot of freezing that took place. So are we going to look at that also? Because as the climate is changing and weather patterns are changing, and the infrastructure could be affected by unusual natural phenomena.
Yeah, absolutely. As part of not necessarily this particular document, but certainly as part of our larger offshore wind work, we're definitely taking that into consideration, and also part of the ongoing resource adequacy proceeding. A main focus of that proceeding and investigation is to make sure that New Jersey and PJM has sufficient capacity resources to not fall short, as Texas has recently.
Any other questions, comments for Joe?
just an observation, Mr. President. There was a an editorial yesterday in the Wall Street Journal suggesting that because Texas was relying more on renewable energy and less on what it called its base
Baseload.
base power ability, its base load power, that was the term it used, that it was more vulnerable to these sorts of outages. And the editorial suggested that other states, such as New York and New Jersey, that were advancing in renewable faced the same kinds of risks. So, I hope staff, can help us address those issues, refute them as appropriate, and assure everyone that we're not going to run into the same kind of problems that Texas has.
That's a good point, Bob. And I also read the same editorial, and I read some other materials indicating that part of the problem in Texas is that the grid was set up in order to acknowledge, in certain parts of the state at any rate, the excessive summers, and that the freezing element, I don't even pretend to understand this, all right? So I'm just telling you what I read. The freezing elements that were created, they tried to explain, was because of the way the grid was set up. Now, whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But apparently there was some deficiency within the grid itself. How many times does Houston get below freezing, as an example? And the amount of snow that they got and that type of thing. So whether that's right or wrong, I think we need more research, but I think it's something where our grid has to constantly not only be upgraded, but examined to ensure the fact that we are, regardless of how we're generating the energy, what needs to be done to maintain the integrity of that grid. So these are good points, and I know staff will certainly continue to be watchful.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think on Monday, New York Times had a nice article in the front page talking about because of the freezing rain, a lot of the wind turbine blades, they all froze, and that's one of the major issues. And it's same thing does not happen in Montana or someplace because they're used to the cold weather, and so they take all the precautions that are necessary. I think because of the changes, freezing rain can change a lot of things in a hurry, and things that don't freeze with the freezing rain, they freeze. So I think we need to really look at the infrastructure. One of the main thesis of that article in New York Times is that as the climate is changing, now, what we need to do is that we need to also make some adaptation to the changes. And at the same time, also, we need to be looking for ways to mitigate carbon generation.
Yeah, it was interesting to read about the turbines. And again, there is the construction of their turbines don't account for, or the materials within their turbines, from what I read, doesn't account for that freezing rain and those kinds of sub-freezing temperatures. We were concerned enough to reach out to turbine makers, and the turbines that will be going into the New Jersey water will not, according to what they told us, freeze. And it will not they're too high up to get mist from the ocean itself. And in many respects, the ocean water will help moderate the effect of those freezing temperatures and so on. So this is what we're told. But again, it's something that we are researching and something that we want to ensure the fact that, you learn every day, right? I mean, things happen and you learn from them. So it certainly something, again, where a watchful eye is necessary.
Yeah, I just wanted to kick in there too. It's not just Texas. I mean, there were incidents last year with New York not having, gas capacity and the issues there. You have what happened in California, and a different set of climate circumstances and margin and capacity issues. And really, what it highlights is the need for us to continue to look at within PJM, which we follow very closely, their reserve margins. I see Joe DeLucia shaking his head, and the issues that we're pursuing as a board. Hopefully will be to all parties who are interested in this subject realize it's a complicated subject. It's not just as simply you put these things onto a system and bing bang boom, everything works perfectly. It's something that needs to be monitored closely and evaluated closely, and regardless of all good intentions, we still have to ensure that when you walk in the room or you turn on your heat, that it's there, as the people in Texas, California, and New York this past year have realized.
That's why nuclear power and gas capacity and so on are so vitally important as we continue to work toward that bridge into renewable energy, and be prudent about how quickly we move into it. And we all want to get there. We all want to achieve that goal. But we have to do it prudently and carefully to ensure the fact, as you say, that when you walk in that room, there's heat. Any other questions or comments?
I might as well pile on. One of the other problems in Texas is their market design and the scarcity pricing. So they're actually, the way it was set up, the Texas Commission had to override the way the market was set up because they were actually holding back power in some places because of the way the market was designed. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors. We're just as we heard about Superstorm Sandy ad nauseum at Nayrook, I think we're going to be hearing about this one for a long time.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, Ada.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Joe. That brings us to cable television. Luanda, 3A, about some kind of investigation here.
Yes, Mr. President. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
You are correct. This item involves a request for investigation into the operations of Altice USA in New Jersey. Shortly following Tropical Storm Isaias in the fall of 2020, the board began receiving complaints from municipal officials regarding the lengthy time periods for restoration of service experienced by customers of the cable TV operator Altice USA. In addition, municipal officials provided details of numerous customer complaints and reports regarding difficulties experienced in the interactions with Altice's customer service personnel. The issues detailed in the reports included frequent and lengthy service disruptions across all services, inconsistent connections and fluctuating internet speeds, long telephone wait times, inability to reach a live operator, failure to provide promised callbacks, incorrect outage or service information, rude or discourteous customer service reps, inability or failure to address service quality or billing issues, and general overall poor and ineffective customer service. To date, the board has received similar complaints from a total of 10 municipalities, which include Denellen, Greenbrook, Hamilton, Howell, Jackson, Montville, North Brunswick, Piscataway, Robbinsville, and Sayreville. These municipalities highlight the fact that with increased use of Altice's services during the pandemic, these customer service failings have had a deleterious effect on their constituencies, severely hampering the ability of customers to work from home and students to engage in virtual learning. They also indicated that they have not been able to gain any reasonable resolution of these complaints from Altice, with some requests having gone unanswered. The complainants allege the various customer service failings of Altice have resulted in their failure to provide safe, adequate, and proper service as required under statute, and they have requested that the board commence an investigation into the adequacy of the infrastructure and the service provided by Altice. The requests seek that the board examine the resources currently being allocated by Altice with respect to personnel, as well as capital investments for the general enhancements, upkeep, and maintenance of the infrastructure necessary to ensure the provision of safe, adequate, and proper service. Staff has reviewed the municipal complaints and notes that similar complaints have been received by the board's Office of Cable Television and Telecommunications from numerous individual Altice customers, as well as several legislative representatives. Staff concurs with the concerns raised regarding the allegations of Altice's failure to meet certain federal and state customer service requirements, and the need for an investigation to determine what efforts can be taken to properly address these concerns. Staff therefore recommends that the board grant the request of the municipalities to initiate an investigation into the operations of Altice USA in New Jersey and the alleged failures to provide safe, adequate, and proper service to New Jersey consumers. Staff proposes that the investigation include a public hearing to be presided over by a commissioner designated by the president to allow the aggrieved municipalities and residents to voice their concerns regarding Altice's customer service failings and provide the company the opportunity to address these allegations. Information regarding the date of the public hearing, as well as information on how parties may participate, will be posted on the board's website. Following the public hearing, staff can review the information received and make recommendations for further action as deemed necessary. With the criteria I have outlined above, staff recommends initiation of the requested proceeding.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Holden, would you want to be the hearing officer on this?
Sure.
Okay. We're initiating this investigation because of as Luanda indicated, the various municipal complaints we've gotten, some handwritten or typed, and others resolutions for the service that they feel they're not getting. And really, the only jurisdiction we have over cable television anymore, or telecommunications for that matter, is customer service. And we've said this multiple times, multiple. We want people to get what they pay for. We're not asking for people to get more than what they pay for, but we don't want them to get less. And during this time in particular, where so many folks are working from home, where so many students are learning at home, the computer and the services provided by companies like Altice become much more important. We cannot allow any company to have a record where their service is so deficient that it's detrimentally affecting people's way of life, particularly during this pandemic. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to just throw out an idea. Lawanda and I have spoken about this during our briefings. What we have here, obviously, is an industry that really is not subject to the forces of market competition. And the thought occurs to me that there may be ways to create some of these competitive pressures to that would create incentives for these companies to do a better job of responding to their their customers. The thought I had is that perhaps we should, every couple of years or so, hire a survey research organization of national standing to do customer surveys of these companies and publish the results. And do this every couple of years so we can see who's doing better and who's moving in the wrong direction. Just a thought I had. Haven't thought about how it gets paid for or the mechanics of this, but I thought that might be one way we can provide some additional encouragement for these companies to be more responsive to their customers. Having just had the experience of installing some cable in my new house, I feel the pain.
Good idea, Bob. We used to call them in on a regular periodic basis to go over the metrics as far as customer service is concerned, because there are metrics and so on, and it would help to some extent. But we didn't do that widespread. Luanda, can you and your team look into what Commissioner Gordon has talked about and see or come up with some idea way we can approach this, whether it's hiring an outside firm to do this on a semi-regular basis, or some other mechanism that might be possible?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call?
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. And there's one more item under telecommunications, Luanda.
That is correct, Mr. President. Item 4A involves a review of the compliance of cable and telecommunications providers with certain directives that are contained in the Governor's Executive Order 190. By way of background, on April 13th, 2020, Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 126, which prohibited the disconnection of residential internet and voice services by all cable and telecommunications providers during the COVID-19 pandemic. In lieu of disconnection, providers were allowed to implement plans which downgraded internet and voice services pursuant to board approval. The board issued an order on May 20, 2020, in docket number TO 2004-0314, confirming the provider's compliance with Executive Order 126 and approving downgrade plans submitted by Comcast. On October 12, 2020, Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 190 to address continued relief for utility, broadband, and voice customers. In addition to extending the moratorium for utility shutoffs, the executive order included certain requirements for the provision of internet and voice service, which included the offering of interest-free 12-month payment plans for overdue balances, options for arrearage forgiveness plans pursuant to board approval, prohibitions on late fees, down payments, or deposits, prohibitions on disconnections of internet service for households with one or more school-aged children using the service for educational purposes, as well as required reconnections of service where a change in the circumstances in the household occurred, making the household eligible. Providers may also enroll these households in downgraded internet plans as approved by the board in lieu of disconnection of service. In December 2020, Altice sought approval of its Executive Order 190 compliance plan from the board. Altice's plan included a 100% arrearage forgiveness program for customers with a past due balance of 90 days or more, a 12-month repayment plan for customers with less than 90 days past due balances, and a downgrade plan where customers with school-aged children would be enrolled in the company's Altice Advantage Internet plan, which offers 30 megabits of service at $14.99 a month, in lieu of disconnection. In January 2021, the board staff submitted inquiries to Altice on its proposed plan and also requested similar information from the state's incumbent cable and telecommunications providers on their compliance with Executive Order 190. Board staff received responses from the following providers: Altice, Charter, Comcast, Service Electric Cable of Huntington, and Verizon. All providers confirmed their compliance with the provisions of Executive Order 190, with some indicating they had not engaged in disconnections of internet and voice services in most instances, and where disconnections had taken place, customers were being offered the option of enrolling in the 12-month repayment plans. Rate Counsel submitted comments to the board addressing Altice's request, as well as the responses received from the other providers to the board's inquiries. Rate Counsel acknowledged that the providers' responses to the board's inquiries confirmed that they are complying with the parameters of Executive Order 190. To ensure compliance, Rate Counsel recommended that the board continue to monitor the programs and require the providers submit quarterly data to the board detailing the number of customers in payment plans, downgrade plans, and arrearage plans, as well as disconnections and customer accounts maintained due to Executive Order 190. Staff has reviewed the submissions of Altice, the responses from other providers, and Rate Counsel's comments, and acknowledges that they appear to confirm compliance with the provisions of Executive Order 190 related to cable and telecommunications providers, and also recommends approval of Altice's debt forgiveness plan and downgrade plan. Staff also concurs with Rate Counsel's recommendations that the providers submit data to the board and Rate Counsel to continue to ensure compliance and monitor compliance, and recommends the board require the providers to submit data on the number of customers participating in the various plans offered by the providers, including but not limited to the 12-month repayment plans, the debt forgiveness plans, the downgrade plans, as well as the number of disconnections and accounts that are maintained based upon the prohibitions against disconnections of internet service for households with school-age children. Subject to these requirements I have just outlined, staff recommends approval in this matter.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for LaWanda? Roll call?
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, LaWanda.
Thank you, Commissioners.
That brings us to water. Mike, we have an aqua issue here.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Can everybody hear me?
We
Yes,
can,
sir.
Michael.
This matter, as the president said, involves Aqua, New Jersey. On April 5th, 2020, Donna Barone and other unnamed individuals filed a complaint in the matter of Donna Barone on behalf of herself and all others similarly situated versus Aqua, New Jersey, Inc. in the Law Division of Superior Court, Camden County. The plaintiffs are customers of Aqua, New Jersey, and received water service in December 2019 or January 2020 in Blackwood Township, Camden County. Plaintiffs filed a class action lawsuit alleging that they incurred out-of-pocket expenses for medical evaluations or treatment after receiving a boiled water notice from Aqua. Plaintiffs seek to recover compensation for the medical evaluations and care, as well as injunctive relief to require specific protocols be established in regard to incidences requiring boiled water orders. The plaintiffs are also seeking to bar Aqua from billing them for water service rendered in December 2019 or January 2020, or a refund of payments made to Aqua during that time period. Aqua moved for entry of an order dismissing the plaintiff's complaint, or in the alternative, referring certain issues to the board pursuant to the doctrine of primary jurisdiction. By order dated February 1st, 2021, the Honorable Michael J. Castle, Judge Superior Court, denied the motion to dismiss, but granted the motion to refer the matters to the board pursuant to the doctrine of primary jurisdiction. The order further stated the Superior Court actions pending a determination by the board as to whether it intends to exercise jurisdiction, as to the factual determinations regarding any issues raised in the complaint. Staff recommends that the board issue an order finding that the issues raised by the complaint fall within the board's jurisdiction. Staff further recommends that the board accept primary jurisdiction to review this matter referred pursuant to Judge Castle's order. Finally, staff recommends that this matter be transmitted to the Office of Administrative Law for hearings as a contested case.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Mike? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
There are no items for consideration under reliability and security or customer assistance. That brings us to clean energy, item 8A, which was discussed in executive session. And Jim, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. This matter is a request for the board to approve a contract for offshore wind transmission consulting services. On January 7th, 2021, the board authorized and staff issued a request for qualifications to retain a consultant to assist staff in working with PJM to develop potential transmission options to support the injection of 7,500 megawatts of offshore wind into the New Jersey transmission grid through the state agreement approach. On February 5th, 2021, proposals were received from two firms in response to the RFQ. Staff reviewed and scored each proposal, and staff recommends that the board approve a contract with the Brattle Group, subject to receiving all required state approvals as discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments for Jim? Now, Jim, this will be then transferred to Treasury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then once Treasury gives its blessing, it then becomes official. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Any questions? Any other questions or comments for Jim? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Commissioners.
As I indicated at the beginning of this meeting, item 8B has been deferred to a future board meeting. That brings us to 8C, which was also discussed in executive session. And Hannah, I think you're presenting.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. Good morning. Staff is currently seeking approval to release an RFQ to a list of qualified consultants for the purpose of engaging a contractor to finalize modeling and analysis for a ratepayer impact study of the 2019 Energy Master Plan. Staff recommends that the board permit the release of the RFQ to the list of qualified consultants to solicit their bids to perform the work outlined and discussed during the executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
One of the most significant and complex ongoing questions before the board is the impact that the state's transition to 100% clean energy has on the New Jersey ratepayer, a very legitimate concern. We began looking at this holistically as part of the Energy Master Plan, the cornerstone of that being the goal of 100% clean energy by 2050 at the lowest achievable cost. And that really was at the direction of the governor to minimize the effect on ratepayers. At the time, Rutgers University began an analysis to consider ratepayer costs of the EMP. Those efforts were paused because of the immediate need to address pandemic-related actions. The board is now refocused on that effort and intends to bring on a sophisticated economic firm that can help the board to assess the very complicated interplay of rate impacts on transitioning energy, on the transitioning energy economy. Today, the board is considering this RFQ for a consultant to build on the work begun by Rutgers and ensure that we provide for the ratepayer a thorough understanding of the financial impact of the state's clean energy transition. I know that some will be eager to see the RFQ, so in anticipation of the questions, the RFQ will still need to be approved by Treasury. And until it is, it does not become official. If Treasury approves, which can be days and sometimes beyond days, we will release it upon request. I know the ratepayer impact is an important and sensitive topic. All of us here are impacted by the increasing rates as well. And part of our job, balancing increasing rates versus what we need to do to protect our planet from the impacts of climate change. And Rutgers, or Texas rather, has been mentioned a few times during this meeting, and something's going on. And we have that obligation to protect our planet of climate change for our children and our grandchildren. This study will give us important information that will help us make those decisions as we think about the future. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Just a question for clarification. You may have intended to mention this, but Hannah, how long do you anticipate this study to take?
Roughly 9 months.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Hannah. But you'll be back later for an encore, I see.
I will.
And 8D, who's presenting, Scott or Ron?
Ron is presenting.
Hi, Ron.
How you doing? Okay, this involves Easy Energy and Pelican Sports Center, and it involves a revenue grade ANSI C12 meter. And on November 23rd, 2020, Easy Energy New Jersey LLC, the petitioner, or Easy Energy, filed a petition on behalf of the customer, its customer, Pelican Sports Center, Pelican, located in Morris Plain, New Jersey. Petitioner installed a 85 kilowatt solar system and sells solar renewable energy certificates, or SRECs, for Pelican. They seek to be credited with SRECs on the basis of solar energy measured by a method other than an ANSI C12 revenue grade meter. Easy Energy seeks a waiver of NJAC 14:8-2.9C based on a mistaken assumption their equipment supplier had shipped the required revenue grade meter, and based on their lack of experience installing commercial systems. Petitioner states that it installed the system on Pelican's property in July of 2018 and has since that time sold SRECs on behalf of the customer. On July 1st, 2020, during an on-site inspection of 2 new systems, the board's SREC registration program administrator, TRC, discovered that a pre-existing 85 kilowatt solar electric generation facility production was not being measured by a separate revenue grade meter. Upon further investigation, board staff found that the date of the installation through July 31st, 2020, Pelican or its representative have been inappropriately entering inverter readings into the Generation Attribute Tracking System, or GATS. Staff confirms that the system Solar Edge inverter is not an ANSI certified as a revenue grade meter. And per staff's direction, the GATS administrator, which is PJMEIS, is on hold to account for the lack of a revenue grade meter. According to the petitioner, at the time of the system's installation, it was not yet familiar with the commercial product requirement of the equipment for the system and did not realize the separate production meter was needed. As a result, production data was entered into GATS on the basis of the system's inverted reading. Easy Energy provided a periodic AC energy report for the period from July 2018 through November 2020, which it asserts supports its claim that the number of RECs sold during this period, which was 211, was compatible to what would be expected to be created on the basis of the system generation for that time period. Petitioner asks that the board take these circumstances into account and allow its customer to be credited with the SRECs that have been sold on the basis of the generation as measured by the inverter. The petitioner also asserts that the board's SREC program administrator, again TRC, inspected and approved the first 85 kilowatt system, so there is a sharing of responsibility, quote unquote. However, this is incorrect. TRC does not inspect every project. Rather, TRC inspects a percentage of projects for each type of solar project as a quality control measure in its administration of the program. In this case, the program administrator waived the inspection for this system, basing SREC certification upon the petitioner's post-construction certification documentation required by the Renewable Portfolio Standard rules. Finally, the post-construction paperwork submitted by the petitioner indicates that a revenue grade meter had been installed when in fact no such meter was ever installed. Therefore, staff does not recommend a waiver of NJAC 14:8-2C and recommends that the petition be denied.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Ron? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Commissioner.
8E was also discussed in executive session, and Hannah, you're presenting that on the interconnection rules.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Staff is currently seeking approval to release an RFQ to a list of qualified consultants for the purpose of engaging a contractor to update New Jersey's interconnection rules to reflect national best practices and to better enable the state to achieve its clean energy goals. The selected contractor will assist staff in advancing the grid modernization strategies outlined in the 2019 Energy Master Plan. Staff recommends that the board permit the release of the RFQ to the list of qualified consultants to solicit their bids to perform the work as discussed during executive session. Thank
So
you.
moved.
Second.
Thank you, Hannah. Any questions or comments for Hannah? Roll call, please, Ada.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes. Thank you, Hannah. And that brings us to 8F. And is this going to be a tag team match, or Kathleen, Stacy?
Yes, it is.
It is.
I'll start. Good morning.
Good morning.
Before you today is the settlement agreement regarding the petition of Atlantic City Electric for approval of its voluntary program for EV charging, which was originally filed in February 2018 and amended in December 2019. Commissioner Chivukula presided over the matter. On September 23rd, 2020, the board established minimum filing requirements for light-duty publicly accessible electric vehicle charging infrastructure. While those requirements were not applicable to this existing filing, they informed staff's positions and policy priorities. Following extensive discovery and settlement discussions, several parties executed a stipulation in this matter. As part of the settlement, ACE will implement an electric vehicle program with approximately $14.8 million in program spending and $5.9 million in operations and maintenance expenses. In alignment with the minimum filing requirements set forth in the September 23rd board order, all incentives are on make-ready investments, the infrastructure necessary to make the site ready for an EV charger. There are no incentives for the charger itself or any associated hardware. The program includes up to 100 public fast charger sites, up to 750 level 2 charger sites at workplaces, community locations, and multi-unit dwellings, and up to 1,500 level 2 residential charger sites. The settlement requires that all charger sites funded by the program be networked so that they may be properly integrated into grid infrastructure compatible with existing software and communicate virtually. The settlement requires that all charger sites funded by the program be networked in order to collect data on usage and provide customers with no less than 2 pre-qualified hardware and software vendors. All data from the charger, including but not limited to time, type, and location of usage, will be collected in a manner to protect customer privacy and will be provided to the board and other third parties in a manner detailed in the forthcoming rule proposals for light-duty charging infrastructure as required by the September 23rd board order. This data will be used to inform future rates and to better understand charging behavior for future EV ecosystem build-out. ACE will provide 2 semi-annual reports each year to the BPU detailing quality and quantity of work, as well as forecasted and actual capital costs of the installed infrastructure. ACE will also post public maps detailing areas that will be best suited for EV infrastructure build-out by the end of calendar year 2021 and earlier if possible. These maps will be prepared and updated by the company on a regular basis. As part of the stipulation and in recognition of ongoing considerations by the board, the Innovation Fund portion of this filing has been withdrawn without prejudice. Those portions of the filing would have included incentives on medium and heavy duty vehicles. However, as part of the September 23rd board order creating the minimum filing requirements, the board called for a public stakeholder process on medium and heavy duty vehicle charging infrastructure. Staff envisions that process starting in FY 2021. In alignment with the minimum filing requirements, the current program includes no utility ownership or operation of charging stations. Any ownership proposals would be part of a future filing in accordance with the last resort criteria and process outlined in the September 23rd board order. I will now turn it over to the Director of Energy, Stacey Peterson, to discuss the rate issues addressed in this settlement.
Told you I'd be back, President. Here I am.
Well, we're appreciative that you were willing to do an encore for us.
So the capital investments made pursuant to ACE's EV program and consistent with the agreed upon budget amounts, they will be included in rate base as those investments are completed and become charger ready, and shall be reviewed for recovery in rates in a future base rate proceeding. ACE will establish an EV program regulatory asset to capture costs associated with the program offerings and incremental operations and maintenance costs. The incremental distribution system O&M costs required to connect non-utility owned public DCFCs will also be recorded in the regulatory asset. There are several rate design modifications including the proposal to allow participation in a residential time of use rate for those with L2 chargers following the collection of appropriate data. For DCFC participants, the parties have negotiated an interim per kWh distribution demand charge solution. As a result of the stipulation, there will be no immediate impact on customers' bills. Any rate changes related to the cost of these programs will be addressed in future ACE base rate case proceedings and will be subject to a prudency review.
Thank you, Stacey. Staff recommends that the board approve this settlement, and staff also recommends that ACE be directed to file revised tariffs consistent with the stipulation by March 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Kathleen and/or Stacy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Stacy, I guess in terms of the demand charge solution, right? The short term, we know what is going to happen, probably 11 cents per kilowatt hour. The long term, ACE is committing for, to do a cost of service study. What time frame are they talking about?
Yeah, so ACE has committed to do a cost of service study to see what the actual costs are to serve these customers, both on the residential side as well as the commercial side. So it would be submitted in their next base rate case, not the rate case that is currently pending right now.
What will be our involvement before the rate? Are we going to be overseeing that, or for the cost of what is our process?
So normally in a base rate case, the utility will submit a cost of service study, and the parties to that proceeding get the opportunity to review that and present their own cost of service study or any proposed changes to it.
Yeah, because during the public hearing, we heard a lot about demand charges. I think that was a major issue in the public hearing. So just wanted to
Yes.
check.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, and I guess, between the two settlements on the EV, this is, a moving target, so to speak. We have not laid out in stone how we're going to be affecting rates, for time immemorial. So this is really, not a pilot in some respects, but in terms of how each utility is addressing this issue, something us to come back and review as a board and decide how we're going to handle moving forward. That's my understanding.
Yeah, correct, Commissioner. The demand charge solution under the PS settlement and the A settlement are two different methodologies. There are several methodologies across the country, and this will give us an opportunity to see which method works better, if neither method works better as it relates to the cost allocation in the state of New Jersey.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, Ada.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Fiordaliso.
Yes, and with this approval, Atlantic City Electric will provide incentives for the make-ready portion of the electric vehicle charging installation. And this will help to reduce range anxiety and promote electric vehicle adoption, which are two challenges that we must overcome. These projects will prove to be more examples of how the state of New Jersey, under the leadership of Governor Murphy, is investing in the new green economy by building a new industry with new jobs. So we're moving in the right direction. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
That brings us to miscellaneous item 9. And Sarah, I believe you're going to present that. Is that correct?
Mr. President?
Yes, it is.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be recusing myself from this matter because I'm a board member of New Jersey Transit.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President and Commissioners. Item 9A establishes a memorandum of understanding between the BPU and New Jersey Transit for the purpose of retrofitting its Hilton Garage in Maplewood, New Jersey. As previously allocated through the 2020 Clean Energy Fund true-up budget, the funding for this project is through the State Facilities Initiative. Staff recommends the board authorize the president to execute the MOU with New Jersey Transit, subject to clarification and his understanding of the MOU.
I'll move it.
Second.
Questions, comments for Sarah?
Sarah, I never got a updated MOU with the changes in it.
We are reviewing it with DAGs, and I will get that to you, Commissioner.
Oh, great. Okay. And that's I guess the language you're using about subject to whatever. for
Yes.
President Fiordalisa. Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, some clarifications have to be made in the language, and
Right.
that's why the delay in getting it.
Right. And my understanding is that, our participation is for the construction and make ready for the garage, not for vehicles in this allocation?
That is correct. We are working on retrofitting the garage for the charging facility, not for the purchase of the bus.
Right. And so we'll be reviewing, any invoices or whatever we go at your division or someone within that division to make sure that those funds are being used for those purposes only.
Yes, we will be.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chivukula,
Yes.
President Fiordalisa.
Yes. Sarah, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all that's on our agenda this morning. I would just like to, everyone who's listening from the public, to advise you that we are expecting a little more snow tomorrow. And in some areas of the state, we may be getting some freezing rain. I just would like to remind everyone that if during this process you happen to lose power, and I hope no one does, please notify your utility to let them know that you have lost power. Don't assume someone else is out there telling them that they lost power. Secondly, if you see any down wires, please do not go near them. Assume they are hot wires that will kill you. So if you want to stay clear of them, let the professionals deal with them. Depending again on where you are in the state, I've seen various amounts of snow ranging from as little as 2 to 4 inches up to 5 to 8 inches. So it all depends where you're located in the state. North Jersey has been getting particularly hit hard during this winter, and it's important that you take all the safety precautions. And again, make sure all your devices are charged, your computers, your phones, etc., so that you're prepared in case you do lose power. And again, let's hope that does not happen, but it's better to be safe than sorry. With that, I will accept a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Moved?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you all for joining us, and stay safe. Take care of yourselves and take care of one another. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.